old pictures, painted pictures usually, for instance of Queen Elizabeth I, you'll see she is wearing one of these great big lace collars. It's called a ruff. So we know that lace was being made in this country then, in the 1500s, and that actually was probably when it started. It probably came to England with a group of people who were called Huguenots. They were refugees from religious persecution, and they came to England because we were at that time a Protestant country. So we think possibly they introduced it to the local people. Bobbin lace, it's a form of weaving. So when you come and have a go, you will find that the threads go under and over, just like they do if you were doing weaving. But you have little pins to guide the direction that they go in. That makes a shape which usually looks rather pretty. This is called a pillow. It's a sort of sacking bag that was filled with very tightly stuffed straw. They cut it up and then they tightly hammered it in. You can feel in the ends of here, you can feel the straw still. There are other forms of pillow. This is a Southbucks pillow, so probably what would have been used around here. The thread is wound onto these wooden things which are called bobbins. That's to keep the thread clean, because you don't want to end up with dirty lace. And also they provide a certain amount of weight, because it's important to keep the whole thing pulled tightly. We call that the tension. If you have it loose, then you get lots of loops and it looks very untidy. And then you have a little bag at the back here, somewhere, underneath here, which collects the lace that you've made. And the whole thing, in my part of the world, was supported by this, which is a lace maid or stand. And we're going to show you how you actually do the work later on.
No. This pattern is to make a fish. We've got the pricking underneath. I've started it by putting in 3 pins already. There looks to be a lot of thread there and a lot of bobbins, but actually when we're working it, we're only actually working with 4 bobbins at a time in pairs. This pair are going to be the worker pair. They're the ones that go back and forth. I don't want to use those yet. They're the passive pairs. They're going to wait their turn. But I'll take the first of the passive pairs with the worker pair, and I'm going to take this one, this passive, the one nearest to the worker pair, and just cross it over the first one. And then I'm going to take the 2 workers together and cross them over the passive pair. And then I'm going to take the passive that hasn't done anything yet and join him up with his other partner. And that's a whole stitch done. There is another stitch to lace making. There are only 2 basic stitches actually, believe it or not. So the other one is called half stitch. So take the first passive pair over the worker, take the new workers, cross them over the passives, no more, that's a half stitch.
What did you think of making lace? It wasn't easy, but it wasn't difficult. I got the hang of it after a few tries.
I found it quite hard because it's repetitive.
Just the technique was really quite difficult, and it was quite fiddly, so it was hard to get all the lace, the winding it in the right positions.
It's rather sad really, but Bucks became a centre for lace making because we were so poor, especially on the tops of the hills. The land was very bad and there was no running water whatsoever, so you couldn't keep animals, because cows, for instance, need a lot of water. The men were employed in agriculture, but they were often out of work, and so it was necessary to find some other way of supplementing your income. Families could be very large. 10 was probably normal in the 1850s, so there was a lot of children to look after. They had to find some way of making the children make money as well. Well, we do actually have pictures of lace schools, and that's how, towards the end of the time actually, that children learnt to make lace. Here's one in Stokenchurch, which was a big lace school. And in most villages like mine, we don't really know for sure where they were, because they were just in ordinary little houses. But there were big villages like Stokenchurch that set up whole proper lace school, a whole building, and they were set up often by the church or by some charitable foundation to help the children have something to get a livelihood from. And then they might have got a bit of ordinary education as well. They probably were taught to read the Bible. That was considered to be very, very important. To start with, they probably were just in people's houses, in their little downstairs room, and it was probably women who either had been widowed or not ever married, so they had no other way of making an income. They were paid, when the children first started, by the parents. In 1596 we've got a record of a teacher being paid a penny for teaching a 4-year-old child. By the time they'd been there a year or so, they could make simple, narrow laces, which were saleable. So then the teacher wouldn't charge the parents anything, but they would sell the lace and have the income from that. And then as they got better, obviously, then they could make more money, and the child themselves might actually make a bit. By that stage, it would have been all girls. Girls and boys started at lace school. In a way, it was a way of getting them outside of the cottages, because the cottages were very small. They must have been very cramped, and their mothers were glad to see them out probably all day, and they were out all day, the whole day, Monday to Friday and Saturday morning. And then they had Sunday off, but of course they were expected to go to church.
A large part of life would also have revolved around the church.
Children would attend every Sunday, and many, if they learned to read at all, would only learn to read the Bible.
For lace makers, a big date in the religious calendar would have been St. Catherine's Day on the 25th of November, where Cattern cakes were made to celebrate the patron saint of lace makers.
We baked our own Cattern cakes to taste.
What did you think of the Cattern cakes?
They were nice.
Yeah, they were very good. It was easy to make, it only had a few ingredients.
Oh, they were really quite good actually. I went home and made some more because I really liked them.
The smaller cottages were only one up, one down, so there was one living room below and there was one bedroom above. If you were lucky, you might have had 2 bedrooms, and then the parents and the babies would have slept in one bedroom, and all the other children would have had to sleep in the other bedroom. If they got too many, or too grown up, then the girls slept in the second bedroom and the boys were sent out to sleep in the barn.
The living conditions of children in the lace industry were described by several contemporary sources. One from 1842 said the following:
If we follow the agricultural labourer into his miserable dwelling, it consists of 2 rooms only. The day room, in addition to the family, contains the cooking utensils, the washing apparatus, agricultural implements and dirty clothes, the windows broken and stuffed full of rags. In the sleeping compartment, the parents and children, boys and girls, are indiscriminately mixed, with frequently a lodger in the same room. By 1889, little had changed. A medical report to Buckingham district reveals there are refuse heaps of household waste, pig manure, etc., frequently near to the dwelling, and offensive emanations from them pervade the air. Human excrement is disposed of in outdoor privies. It is no uncommon thing for a privy to discharge into a ditch around the premises.
Oh, everyday life for a child, it was very different from the sort of life that you have. Because first of all, you were born probably into a very large family. You were living in a very small cottage, and your father might be out of work, so there wouldn't be any income. You were living from hand to mouth, you certainly wouldn't have had any savings.
What did you think about the lives that Victorian children had in the lace schools and so on?
I think it was quite horrible. Like, I would not have liked to be doing something like that, and I think it's not really fair on them that they had lives so terrible like that.
Would you have wanted to have been a Victorian child making lace?
Definitely not. We have loads of more free time. You actually have you can do what you want and not have to do stuff to actually survive.
Yeah, I have a lot more free time and I can do what I want, kind of.
I mean, it would have been boring, every day, just doing the same thing over and over.
I really liked learning about how life was as a Victorian child because in school we never really learned about it, so I wasn't really aware before of how different it was.
Although life was tough, and even children spent most of their time working, they still had some games they liked to play. We tested out a few of them, like marbles, jacks, pick-up sticks and bagatelle.
What's your favourite game that we played?
I like pick-up sticks. because it's just really competitive and you can just sit down and play it with anyone and you can have a good time.
I don't quite remember the name, but it was like the coin moving game where like, you had to get it to like the highest number you can to get more points.
I played the Skittles and pick-up sticks, and that was my favourite one.
I quite enjoyed the hopscotch because you can like be playing for ages and hardly do anything, then just like swoop in and win. So it adds to like the entertainment of the game.
Just about 1800, they invented the first machine to make net. It just made the net background. But that was all right for some forms of lace, but wasn't all right for bucks, so we were okay for a little while after that. But by 1850, they perfected machines which could make lace almost, well, maybe even better than we could. The way you can tell a machine-made piece of lace from a handmade is the machine-made is always perfect. There's never a mistake. With the handmade, there's always a mistake if you look closely. The wealthy still, it was quite a thing to have handmade lace, so they still went on buying it for a while, but it did gradually decline. The numbers that were employed in lace making here in Sea Green and Jordans, and they were, I think, 17 at the height, about the 1851 census, but by the 1901 they dropped to 3, and after that, that was the end, apart from a hobby, which is what we do now.
Get to the field by 1, gather the rod by 2, tie it up by 3, send it home by 4, make her work hard at 5, give her a supper at 6, send her to bed at 7, cover her up at 8, throw her downstairs at 9, break her neck at 10, weld it by 11, stamp her in at 12. How can I make the clock strike 1 unless you tell me how many you've done, tell me how many you've done. Field by 1, gather the rod by 2, tie it up by 3, send it home by 4, make her work hard at 5, give her a supper at 6, send it to bed at 7, cover her up at 8, throw her downstairs at 9, break her neck at 10, weld it by 11, stamp her in at 12. How can I make the clock strike 1 unless you tell me how many you've done, tell me how many you've done.